welcome everybody to another episode of the Future of BizTech. I'm your host, JC Granger, and I have the pleasure of having John Snyder, the CEO of NetFriends, here with me. John, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what does NetFriends do?
Sure. I'm John Snyder. I've been with NetFriends now almost 26 years. I'm not a founder of NetFriends. I was the third employee and have got that up from the mailroom thing where I was up from the field tech thing. And have done almost every job in the company. I have a ton of empathy for every role here. And NetFriends is a managed services provider. We weren't always a managed service provider. We were always IT support, et cetera. But we've had a lot of role confusion about what we are because the original founder of NetFriends, David, was a yes man. We can figure it out, win-win all around, and that made us say yes to a lot of different things, which we can explore further and other questions you'll probably have for me. But we are now a pure play managed service provider, very comfortable with the providing IT solutions to folks primarily in and around Durham and Raleigh, North Carolina, but we have plenty of customers all over the United States and a few in Europe as well.
Nice, nice. And then, so I do kind of want to talk about this because this, as far as your history with the company, because like you said, this is rare. It's not often we find a mailroom to CEO story, which
Right.
is why I wanted you on the show because, that's most people are the founders of their company or they started off already pretty high.
Yeah.
You said third employee. Like, what were you doing? How did you get this job? What made you even want to work for the company? And then, like, in a minute or two, how did you work your way all the way up? How long did that take?
It took a long time. Well, I mean, the quick story is when I was a student, I was on financial aid and I had to have a work study program. And I did a few odd jobs. I worked in the library and did some stuff in like the language lab. But the job that I really resonated with and took was doing very gopher level, courier level stuff initially with the Department of Anesthesiology that just needed like another set of hands occasionally. I ended up working there for about 3 years as a student and did a lot of IT support and troubleshooting. And ultimately, it was kind of like my summer job too. So I would really ramp up in the summer and do 40 hours there. But I knew as I was coming up to graduating that I had burned out. I was a science major, so I was a biology major, kind of burned out on science, and I needed to do something to cool my jets for about a year. I wasn't ready to go off into school again. And I also knew that IT, because this was in 1999, I knew that IT was, almost like if you could fog a mirror, I said that you were going to get a job somewhere. So I kind of figured I would do IT stuff. And I really stumbled into this job. That's a story. Do you want me to unpack that story?
A little, oh, yeah. So no, I get
Okay.
how you got there. So I mean, for one, how long you been at the company?
So 26 years. I was hired on May 27th, 1999.
If, who's counting?
Right.
You know the exact date and time. It was
I
like it's
do.
stamped. It's stamped.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to get to that like C level? Like, did you go like how about this? What was the step right before CEO? Did they bump you from a VP? Like, how did
Yeah, I
you?
was VP. So the real quick progression is I was a field tech for so I started out as a field tech and you can say I was a junior, then I became a senior field tech. We didn't really have very well-defined titles. Around 2005, I saw a managerial vacuum and I became the manager. People referred to me as the manager. There was no pay increase. There was no official ceremony. I just kind of started managing and people kind of responded to my management.
Responsibility without the pay raise. Yeah, that's super
Right.
rare. That never happens to anyone.
Right. And all the training I got. Oh my goodness. Anyway.
Mhm. Oh,
so
yeah.
so so I kind of stumbled into that and I was a kind of de facto manager for about 3 years and then I was gifted ownership. So the company went through a split. So again, I'm telling this story mostly on a timeline scale. When that split happened in 2009, I became a minority owner and my title shifted to VP. I was
Okay.
VP for a long time, probably about almost 10 years, and became president when I had another VP. So I in turn gifted some of my shares to my partner Neelish, who became VP and I became president. And then when I bought out our founder David, and at the very end of 2020, that was a year. We I became CEO at that point, and my partner, who was VP, became president.
That's awesome. So let's talk about like how, when you became the CEO, it's almost like the birth of a new company in a way, right?
Yes.
Because like once you have the reins, it's not an out the old in with the new, but I'm sure being at the company for that long, you had ideas that you wanted to do probably. Like, what
Yeah.
was it like transitioning? And did you guys like grow a lot right away, or has it been just more steady? Walk us through that. Like, how did it change from when you came on and at the power level?
Yeah, we've had two major growth spurts. I'll talk about those. There was a growth spurt between 2009 and 2012, and there was a growth spurt around 2021 to 2023. So those were our two big growth spurts. I would love to tell you that, oh yeah, as soon as I became CEO, I had this like awesome list of priorities and I crushed them and I just pushed aside all the distractions and I was perfect.
Hmm.
Absolutely not the case. There's this weird sense of like when you suddenly get what you've been pursuing for years. Because even if you aren't, a lot of people are ambitious and they'll say, yes, I want to be CEO or I want to be at the top. Um, I kind of backed into it because I was given a lot of freedom and there was a lot of unstructured elements to NetFriends all throughout my time there. So I didn't really feel this huge, unmet desire to get into control because I was given so much latitude and freedom.
Sure.
So once I got ownership, there was a period of like, okay, now what? And again, no training, no guidance, just like, okay, what is it? What do I do with this? What does this mean? Had to figure out a lot of that stuff out. If I had to go back, I would definitely have sought out peer groups or someone else who is already in a CEO role to be a mentor. Because I really looked to my previous to David, the founder of NetFriends, to be my mentor. He hadn't shown any desire to be my mentor throughout my entire time working with him. He was a wonderful boss, but mentoring is just not his thing. And
Mhm.
so I don't know why, but I expected him to suddenly be my mentor. Huge mistake. Because I kept wanting it. I kept trying to create opportunities for him to come into that vacuum of mentorship. And
Mhm.
he was very pleasant. It was kind of like that awkward conversation where someone just keeps answering with yes and no, and you want them to go on and tell you about their feelings and their thoughts and their observations, and he's just like, yeah, it's good. I mean, I would ask him like, what's your tips on managing the finances? He's like, I would go check out the bank account, and if there was money in there, we're good. And I'm like, okay.
Like,
And
okay,
then
got
and he's
it.
like, no, that's what we did. That's what I did. I was like, really? You didn't do
That's a little
any?
scary.
A little scary, right? It's super tracked though. I realized he wasn't just being coy. There was a long time I was like, oh, I just got to tease it out of him. Got to find that secret, I don't know, phraseology that would just unlock all this experience and secrets that he had about how he was a successful
He was
business owner.
done. He was checked out, man.
Well, it's I don't know if he was ever checked in. And I don't mean that in a bad way. He's just it's like asking a firefighter like how to build a better building that doesn't burn. It's like the firefighter you'd think would like, oh, you fight fires all the time, right? You know exactly what kind of materials don't burn.
Like
They're
use brick. He's like
they're
just
like,
use.
no, I turn on the water and I spray it at the flames until there's no more flames. And then I go home and I take a shower. And I'm like, okay. So
Yeah.
you don't have any ideas about a better, wood composite material? And they're like, no, I fight fires. That's what I do. And I just never thought that because he was in the firefighting game, I just assumed he had, I don't know, studied material sciences to carry
Yeah.
this metaphor for. But if you think about it, it's kind of way too much to expect of a firefighter to know how to build a better building. Like
Yeah.
it's just
That's
not
actually it's a
realistic.
good analogy. I like that analogy. That's funny.
Yeah.
Being an MSP, you're in a highly competitive space. So
Mhm.
what sets you guys apart in your opinion? Hey, if you're trying to land that new big client, Why do they go with you versus someone else? What's that compelling offer, so to speak?
Yeah, well, obviously, as your MSP grows and changes over time, that pitch changes. So my pitch right now is that we've got such a good team of experts that really work well together, that have amazing processes that are held together not just by really good documentation, but we actually have a lot of programmatic reinforcement of all the core things that we do.
What was the term you gave me? Robotic.
Robotic process automation.
Okay, yeah, I like that term. There you
Yeah,
go. Keep going. Yeah.
it's a neat term. So
Yeah.
if you break down what a lot of managed service providers have, they've got something that is deployed into either cloud systems and endpoints, workstation servers, etc. They've got monitoring controls in those things. They've got a ticketing system, something to track all the work orders and requests that come their way. But robotic process automation stitches all that together. So it's the kind of thing that you can make a single click or a single trigger cause a cascade of things to occur and occur reliably. And when they don't occur, when something errors or breaks, you get notice about it, you're notified, and you can go in and say, okay, what's missing here? Is there an integration that isn't there? Is something
Like a
down that should be?
like a virtual assembly line or something.
100% like a virtual assembly line. And
There,
and
that's your
so
new. I just gave you your new term.
I like it.
There
You're a
it is.
marketing guys. I can already feel like you're, yeah. So
I'm spitting gold over here, John.
got a
Okay, just
little
take it.
little
It's
TM.
free. It's free. The next one's gonna cost you. Go ahead.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, and that's the, I think, our biggest differentiator. I mean, almost any technology solution provider, whether you're a managed service provider or you're a break fix, you're gonna play to your strengths. You're gonna say, I've got really good people with good experience. We work well together. We've got some processes. But I think a company like ours, who's more mature in the space and has more resources, our big differentiator is the fact that we've got robotic process automation pulling all those people and technology tools together and process together and making it as automated as possible, as resilient and durable as possible, and to really achieve outcomes that happen way faster than any human can do it, even if they know exactly what to do and they do this day in and day out. And so every day we are trying to build more process that we can turn into something that's automated, that's strung together by a series of actions and triggers. And that's where we put a ton of our time and energy into doing that.
That's awesome. And with there being so, again, like I said, so many competition MSPs, and most of them kind of sit in that lower range. I mean, I guess how big are you guys roughly, right? Like, I mean, I don't know
Sure.
whatever financial if you're allowed to share or policy
Oh,
wise, but just what is that? What kind of scale are you guys on?
yeah. So we're about an 8 to 10 million a year MSP. Right now we have 41 folks, and I've seen that when we've had we at one point we had 70 people, and I'll talk about how we had to unwind some of that. That was a pretty tough thing. We'll talk about some of my struggles with that. I've seen that headcount, revenue, those things are a lot of people can kind of size you up with that, but what no one can really size is like the intellectual like property and the heft that you bring. That's where that robotic process automation, I think, is so hard to I wish I could like say we have a score of 1012 on the robotic process automation scale, and you'd be like, dang, okay, you guys are far along with that. Like I wish I could convey that. That's where I really see a lot of value in our company as a whole. But yeah, I'm rambling at this point. So hopefully
Well, no,
almost anyone here can see like headcount, revenue, they kind of got a
yeah,
sense
I
of
mean,
our
I
size.
like asking the question because at least,
Yeah.
when people hear the story, if they don't know what that led to, then it kind of leaves that open-ended question. It's like, okay, yeah, you did all these things, you've been here long, but like, is it still a struggle? Or are you guys doing really well? And so I kind of like to show people or have the listeners understand, like, hey, this is a story, but look where it's at now, right? And you
Mhm.
could be there too if you're following these kind of things. But let's talk about it. You brought up the struggles. I do want to talk about the struggles. Well, let's start with the one you brought up though, because it sounded like you had to do either layoffs or realignment or however you want to put
Did.
it. That's never easy, especially I can imagine you know all these people. You've been there longer than anyone else, pretty much,
Yeah,
right? So it's
absolutely.
like, how hard was that to now you're sitting in the big chair and you got to make the hard decisions? What was that like?
Yeah, it incredibly hard. It's not just so the story. I've so many stories of struggle. The one that came to a head in October of 2023 was such a painful one because going back to about, I guess it was like 7 or 8 years prior to that, I was always into security. One of the main things that my first real big contributions to our recurring revenue at NetFriends was a cybersecurity product back in 2003. So long through line of looking for opportunities for recurring revenue, looking for opportunities in cybersecurity, and had an employee of mine who had been moonlighting with me for years, had partnered up with someone and was going to go be their own entrepreneur back in about 2014 was when this really came to a head. And this person who I don't want to name any names here said, I'm going to figure out a way to work with you, John. I'm going to figure out a way to work with NetFriends. I just need a little bit of time to, get my business established. So by 2015, he had accomplished this, and we became an outsourced cybersecurity arm for them. And we, over the years, built up a full blown security operations center. We had 12 members on that team, had a manager. We had SOC analysts, level 1, 2, and 3. We had all these escalation procedures. It was phenomenal. We had entered into a 3-year, roughly $2 million a year contract with this company to provide outsourced cybersecurity services. I wouldn't say it was going great in the sense of the business to business relationship, but the product we were providing, the cybersecurity services, top notch, award winning, amazing cybersecurity team. And it got blown up in October.
Oh
The
no.
entrepreneur that I was working with sold just the book of business to another group that already felt like they had a security operations center, so they didn't need ours. Ended in a heartbeat. Literally within days, we had to shut down that entire SOC. And if we had just been given 30 days notice, 60 days notice, 90 days notice, every extra month I had, I could have saved more of those jobs. But as most people know, cybersecurity analysts are not cheap. Holding that size of a team together is not cheap. And so, because the book of business was sold and they were like, we're done, shut down. I know you have a contract. We
Mm-hmm.
don't, we know that you enforcing it's going to be this long legal struggle. And they backed me into a corner, and I had very little recourse other than shutting down the whole team. And there's always collateral damage from that too. And that
Yeah.
goes beyond that team. So that triggered actually 2 different rounds of layoffs, and we went from 70 down to where we are today, around 40. And ultimately, we, and I know this is, I'll wrap up here on this. I mean, you can poke me as far as you want to poke me on this story if you want me to go further into the pain. But ultimately, this has caused us to do a lot of like retrenching and thinking about our primary business model, because what I ultimately saw there was I was running 2 different businesses within my own business. I was running a cybersecurity business that was focused and dedicated on providing those services, and I was running a managed service provider business that had a completely different set of customers. And I think, as much as I would never wish to go through what me and everybody else around me had to go through. The the way to frame it as in a good way is that at the end we were able to be much more focused on
Mm-hmm.
being the best managed service provider we can be and focus on that part of the business. And that's where we are today.
That's rough when you get the rug pulled out from under you like that. I think, I mean, I've been in business 14 years. I've had that similar style thing happen, right? But what's nice is that you have the ability to recover from it, and it's not like all of your business. It is hard letting that many people go. I mean, that's got to be really hard, right? Especially
Yeah.
if you when you've kind of grown up with them, so to speak, in that sense, professionally, right?
Yeah. And we were very transparent with everyone. I think the hardest part was the first couple days because no one really believed me that we were that caught off guard. Because I mean, like, think about it. Like almost everyone on that team has to be going, like, come on, John, you had to
Yeah.
know.
Like you
I
really didn't know?
really
Yeah.
I found out when the press release landed and they were like, come on, that can't be true. Because that's insane. I'm like, I agree, it's insane. And it's the truth. And there was no advance warning, and it took him a couple beats to really, because it's such a trust shattering thing when like
Yeah.
you're told everything's fine, it's yet another month, let's kind of do the thing, and then suddenly boom, you're hit with that. So there was a lot of like, who do we trust, who's gonna get my back here when, thinking from the perspective of all these folks, they all had their whole life, their work life just ripped apart and disrupted beyond anything they had done. It didn't matter how good a job they'd done, didn't matter the promotion that they had coming up. It was all just, shattered in a minute. And so that was probably the hardest part, was just reestablishing trust in such an environment where, I mean, it's so hard to ask that of someone, but they have to eventually, right? They have to trust somebody, because otherwise, where are the facts? What's the truth here?
Yeah.
And that was
No,
probably the hardest part, was regaining that trust.
that sounds like a gut wrencher.
Oh yeah,
Um, Being a marketing guy, I like to talk about marketing, right? So we got the struggles down, right? That's all the bad news.
sure.
Talk to us about how do you guys get business now? I mean, again, there's plenty of people in tech and MSPs in the audience. Um, what are you? Oh, you're doing PR. We know that you're on a podcast. There you go. PR
Right.
check. Okay.
Yes.
What else does NetFriends do to get the word out about them so that people looking for their services?
Yeah. Let me tell a bit of a story about how we got here. We didn't do
Yeah.
anything with marketing until about 2016. So we've been in business since 98, no marketing. I mean, we had a website, but I mean, it was anti-marketing. You would go to
Sure.
that website and you're like, get me out of here. So we were very dependent on word of mouth, referrals, and it actually worked great because David was very connected with the community, so he got a lot of that, a lot of just like people connecting. Hey, I know you, and I think you'll be good. And so it wasn't until about 2016 where we realized we should start doing something with marketing. We made a huge mistake right out of the gate. We hired not a marketing specialist, marketing communicator, an individual contributor. We hired a chief marketing officer. I don't recommend doing that.
Hmm.
Now the chief marketing officer we brought in was great. His name is Matthew, phenomenal guy. Love him to pieces. But all of a sudden he comes in, he's like, so um, what's our website? Where's the email campaigns? Where's the list? We had none of that. We're like, we expect you to build all that. And he could, but it's kind of rude. In hindsight, I look at it and I'm like, that's not, we were asking.
That's not what a CMO does. A CMO manages your marketing team, and that'd be like asking you to go and do the cybersecurity, watch kind of thing. It's
Yeah,
like, no, you're the
monitor the
CEO. Like,
alarms,
yeah, it's yeah, like that's yeah.
yeah,
In
and
his defense, I'll defend him on this one because yeah,
it wasn't his fault. He was a champ. He
yeah,
actually, because when we hired him, it wasn't like, hey, build the marketing team you want to build. No, he was hired and he was told, this is it. You're it. Because
no,
you're the
yeah,
chief, you are also the totality of marketing.
yeah,
And that was not fair to him at all. He was with us for a year before he cycled out to go somewhere else where he could be part of a team. But in that
yeah,
year, he did help us build out a lot of the core raw things that you need in marketing. We had an event booth set up. He helped us get that together. He helped us get email lists. He helped us build a website, get some graphic design work. I mean, to his credit, he rallied.
yeah,
Now, he told us, of course, like you need a marketing coordinator. You need someone who's an individual contributor. And that was our next hire. Her name is Tracy, and Tracy was great. Tracy did a lot of that initial, second improvement work, put like the logo on the door and on the van and the other things we had. Like she did a lot of great work. Um, after Tracy, we hired someone named Emily. I know these names are may not be as important, but what I'm trying to emphasize is we kind of just had one marketing person, and we're kind of figuring out how do we do this. How do we have a single person do all the things? And in marketing, being really good at social media, being really good at web design, being really good at advertising,
No one
being really
person
good
is
at
good at all
sales.
of it.
Exactly. And
Period.
so we started to figure that out.
Yeah.
And so now I've got a 3-person marketing team, and they work really, really well together. Before I had a 3-person marketing team, what I saw happening was Emily became more of a vendor manager than I was comfortable with. Meaning, instead of her writing a blog, working on a design, she was spending a lot of time chasing down vendors, holding vendors accountable, because you ultimately do need someone to manage these various channels that you have.
Yeah.
And what I saw was it's great to have vendors plug in gaps, but when you have a vendor plugging in a gap and another vendor plugging in a gap and another vendor plugging in a gap, you get to the point where you're just cycling between meetings with them and tasking them, and you're not in-housing your own voice and brand and style and way of presenting yourself. Because a lot of the vendors understandably are recycling a lot of the same ideas. They're like, okay, we did this for a MSP in Utah. They're in a different geographic space. We can use that same playbook over here in North Carolina. And they have reasons for doing it, but you're also becoming more and more of a commodity when you do that, because you seem like other MSPs. You don't have an individual voice. So if you want to have an individual voice, you've got to find a way to have enough marketing talent and personnel to in-house that voice. So ultimately, in 2023, we figured a lot of this stuff out. I don't know if it was as well articulated in my head as I'm articulating it now, but we figured this out and we saw, okay, we're going to make strategic hires and we're going to build our own marketing team, and then just start to ease off of all vendors that we don't need anymore because we've got the talent in-house.
Nice. No, that's good. Like I always tell my clients, I was always like, listen, our relationship is temporary no matter what. I've always said if my daughter is living in my basement at 25, I have failed as a father, right? Like the idea is to build a company to a certain point where they can start slowly bringing in people to take over certain parts. The dream is one day you have a full-fledged marketing team. You don't need anyone. You got it all in-house. Now, does that cost you more? Yeah, sure, but you also get to keep the brand, right? Like they have a more vested interest in the success of it. I think that's really where a lot of marketing agencies or contractors, I think that's the issue with the relationship, is that they don't have a vested interest. They get paid for what they do, but
Yeah.
that's just a client. Clients come and go. Whereas when someone's in-house, it's more of an identity also, and all their chips are in, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're pot committed because that's their whole job. That's their entire revenue to pay rent and food, and everything's getting more expensive anyway, right? So yeah, no, I agree with that
Yeah.
move. I'm glad you guys started on that path.
Yeah, and I want to challenge something that you said earlier just now, where you said it may be more expensive compared to what you can trick yourself into thinking you're getting from a vendor, where they're only giving you a tiny fraction of the whole of their work day and work week and work month, a tiny fraction of their headspace, because that's the only way the marketing company can monetize and
Yeah, because
make
they
profit.
have volume of clients, right? Yeah, it's a
Right.
scale. Yeah.
Right. And when you're cycling from client to client, it's hard to hold in your head all the nuances and uniques about each client. We all know that from supporting our own customers. Like it's a challenge. And so you lose some energy and some creativity simply due to the cost of compartmentalization. And so when you can have an uncompartmentalized person really focusing on you and your brand, you're getting a lot of value out of that. So I would challenge the cost and say, have you really thought about how much you should be budgeting of your overall operational budget towards marketing?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of answers on this, but you should be spending at least 6% and maybe up to 10%, depending on how competitive your market is. Like if you're in New York or LA or something.
Yeah.
And I'm just telling you, I've looked into this a lot. I've thought about this a lot, and you should be spending between 6 to 10% of your overall operating budget on marketing. And if you think of it in those terms, in-housing as much of marketing as possible becomes a lot more, it becomes cheaper, and you realize it's actually a lower cost way to solve the problem to get the most out of it.
As long as you're hiring properly. To be fair,
True.
that I've seen people do this and they botch the hiring process, and that nothing costs you more than a bad hire. Nothing.
Right. Yes.
But
I
you
mean,
seem to be you've done
I've
well.
definitely seen that before.
You did it good though.
100%. 100%. So yeah, hazard number one, you've got to be able to hire well. You got to know how to attract. You got to know how to bring that person in. And then of course you got to, when we're an IT provider, it's hard to think about how am I going to make a marketing person feel valued and feel part of the whole when my headspace is a lot of times.
Oh, uh-oh. Oh, it looks like we froze there a little bit. Well, that's unfortunate. Some of those technical things happen. Give me 1 second here.
And
There we
are
go.
you
Yeah, you're
there?
back. Yeah, it
All
was
right.
weird. It froze. So I paused the recording for the audience so they didn't have to deal with that. The last part that I caught you at was when you were talking about how you managed or how you hired properly, that you did.
Yeah, I can start over on that if you
Oh
like.
yeah, just from there. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about hiring, you do have challenges. You're probably more accustomed to hiring techs than you are hiring someone who is in a non-technical role. You're also going to have challenges onboarding them, working with them, making them feel like they're well tasked, they're valued, they're well utilized. But you got to think about it as so critical to you and your brand and your, because you're as a CEO, as a business owner, marketing is all anyone outside of your business can see. They are
Mhm.
literally the skin on top of all the skeletal structure and muscle, et cetera. They're how you
Yep.
look. So
Yeah.
you got to spend time thinking about that. And you can hire, what I would recommend if you're trying to hire a marketing person, you don't really know what to do, pull up, whatever, LinkedIn, pull up different websites, look at other MSPs that you like, and then
Hmm.
bring in different people who are marketing folks and say, what do you like about this? Get someone who's like-minded, who likes what you like. That's probably my biggest suggestion. Just find someone who can at least recognize what you think is good and attractive, or could challenge you in a way that makes you rethink things if they
Sure.
can point out why you shouldn't go with this or that, why that doesn't really work. So just different things to think about. But oh my gosh, hiring. I know you're right. There's some hazards there, but oh my gosh, you got to try. You got to
You
get
get
it
it right
right.
though. Yeah, when you get it right, I mean, you don't get to not do it. You don't get to opt out, right?
No.
You just got to figure it out, right? That's the
Yeah.
difference. Yeah.
And just
Um,
recognize you've got to spend money. You've got to spend money on marketing. Otherwise, that word of mouth, the referral pipeline,
Mhm.
it's drying up, everybody. Even if it's working right now, it is going to dry up.
Well, and it plateaus, right? Like the problem is there's only so much you can get out of that. There's no such thing as scaling on referrals. It's not a thing, right? You can grow on referrals,
Yeah.
but if you're looking to go from here to here, that's not going to happen from referrals. And if it does, it's because you got an overly large client, which is also a risk in itself, i.e., you've been through that, right? When you get one that
Yeah.
accounts for more than, 10% of your revenue, it becomes a liability also, right?
Right.
So yeah, so I do agree with that. What are your 12-month goals? Like, what do you guys got coming? Like, how about this? From your current area right now, are you guys like, hey, we want pedal to the metal, we want to double in size? Like, what are your goals as a company? And then do you have anything coming down the pike service wise or some fun new tech that you want to tell us about? Future of BizTech, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as far as like looking ahead to the next 12 months, most of what we're focusing on right now is honing our sales process. So, something I haven't mentioned yet, we went with this company late last year, for the very first time using outsourced business development. A
Hmm.
BDR, a cold caller. Yeah, I've resisted this so much, and for lots of reasons. But I've started to recognize that around 2023, the sales climate has really shifted. And I don't think it's just in our metro area. Back in 2022, I mean, you could just land customer after customer. It felt like 2022 was an amazing year of growth, not just for us, but for a bunch of other MSPs I talked to. It started to get harder to win sales in 2023, got a lot harder in 2024, and it's still hard now. And so it's just more competitive. People are asking really great questions and they're really challenging you. So a lot of what we're seeing is this year, we've got to get all sorts of elements that are related to sales honed and perfected and optimized. So we're trying new things like the BDR. We're trying a lot of different things to make sure we can be persuasive and figure out a way to bring very skeptical customers on board. We're just seeing tremendous skepticism out there. Too many people have been burned by, techs with good promises that just panned out, or they didn't get what they wanted. So we're having to go against the grain a lot to convince folks to invest in us. So that's a big thing that we're focusing on. Things I'm excited about that we're building that's coming down the pike. There's a lot to be done in the strategic space. So what we're finding a deep hunger is, okay, we need IT support. We need to know that you're going to be there when we need you, whether it's routine or an urgent matter. But a lot of people are struggling with, how do I get a comprehensive technology picture here? How do I deal with cybersecurity in a way that actually makes sense versus just buying this, buying that, buying that? How do I integrate all these different applications that I have? I've gone into the cloud. Now what? So strategy is where we see a deep hunger in a lot of our customers. Some don't name it. Some it's like hidden in their mind and you have to surface it. But what we're finding is a lot of folks recognize that we're in a world right now and a business climate that's super challenging, and figuring out the future is really tough. So having someone smart you can strategize with, bounce ideas off of, and reduce risks is huge. So we're seeing a lot of interest in that. So a lot of our products right now are really leaning into strategy.
Got it. Okay. Well, let me ask you a question here. I mean, you've been doing this a long time, right? You've been in this company from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what advice would you give to other execs in the tech industry, whether it be MSP or cybersecurity, things like that, right?
Yeah, I'd
One
give a
piece, like
lot of
what's that one thing that you're like, you got to know this.
yeah. So the best business decision I ever made was picking my partner, Neelish, and making sure he had ownership, making sure that he was with me on this journey. So we're roughly the same age. I'm a Duke grad. He's a UNC grad. So we've got that, you'd think have that tension there for that rivalry. But what's so great is he and I have similar values, similar interests, but he's really good at things I'm not as good at, and I'm really good at things that he's not as good at. So we complement each other really, really well. And having a business partner is something I see a lot of folks struggle with. And so
Yeah.
it took me years to build this partnership with him before we actually made it official on paper. But when I talk to anyone who's struggling, anyone who feels that loneliness at the top, or any business that's struggling, there's almost always that loneliness at the top vibe. You can get this a little bit with peer groups, but having a true business partner that's with you is I think one of the best things ever for my peace of mind, my mental health, my job satisfaction, my sense of accomplishment. Someone who, when I high five with, it is truly mutual. I would recommend that everybody who doesn't have that, never stop seeking it, look for it. They probably are working for you in some capacity, or they will work for you soon, and just nurture that and find that future partner. It's not a successor. So it's not like you're looking for someone who you can sell the business to, give the business to, or something. You're looking for a partner, someone who's going to share the journey with you. Never stop that pursuit if you don't have it. And if you have it, cherish it and make sure you never, ever abuse that in any way, shape, or form. That's the difference maker for me, and that's why I can enjoy the journey that I'm on because I can share it with someone that I truly trust.
That's awesome. I love that. Um, where can people find you specifically if they heard something they like and they want to do a bigger deal and reach out to you? And then also, where can they just find the company?
Sure. So we're at netfriends.com. We've got plenty of calls to actions to contact us on there. I get all of those. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm John Snyder, Snyder. And those are the two best avenues to just, find me out there. I'm always on. I'm always vigilant there. So yeah, that'd
That's
be it.
awesome. Well, for everybody listening, thank you again for listening to another episode of the Future of BizTech. And John, thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad that we got to interview you and hear your story, especially since you went that mailroom to CEO story. I love that.
Absolutely. Thank you, JC, for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And again, everyone listening here, if you liked what you heard today, go ahead, rate it 5 stars, share it with other geeks like us, because that's how tech nerds find cool podcasts like this. And we will talk soon. Thanks a lot, John.
Yep. Thank you.